Hello and welcome to the Securing Industry podcast brought to you by Arcadian Technology. This is where I interview specialists and senior figures across the world of OT and industrial security. I'm pleased to welcome Mohamed Harrou to the podcast today. Welcome, Mohamed.
Welcome, David.
Good to have you on. Great to see you. Mohamed is an offshore OT security engineer for Amprion and previously head of SCADA, for BayWa in Germany. Me and Mohamed are going to be talking about NIS 2 regulations and the impacts on the renewable sector today. But before we get into that, Mohamed, could you just briefly introduce yourself? I think maybe start with how you got into OT security or how OT security found you. I think that's always an interesting point for everyone. And then just a quick overview of your career and guess your current position within OT before we get into the key topic.
Okay, yeah, we'll do so. First, thank you for the invitation, David. I'm happy to be here today. And hopefully I can bring some more benefit to the listeners. I have started my career with a apprenticeship as an industrial electrician in the last century. I had started, and yeah, long time ago.
Yeah.
And I've never waked up and said, okay, so I want to be an OT security engineer. So as I come from the industrial side, I worked in the industrial area, and then I have moved in 2012 to the renewables business. And I was also a long time as a self-employed IT um, freelancer.
Okay.
And this is why I was still in contact with IT, and IT security was something what was interesting for me. Also in the time where IT security was not so popular like today. And I've seen so that it's mostly very easy to hack something. And as I have moved from the industrial area to the renewables business, because I wanted to go to the renewables business, I was very interested and excited to start there because I wanted to do something. Yeah, in that time I have seen that IT security is not really a topic. At that time, often port forwardings were used and was devices which were not able to be open in the internet, to be exposed in the internet. And then I've seen, hey, here's a lot of work. And then I've started as a SCADA engineer. It was before my time at BayWa. And I've started with first in the solar and then later on a solar and wind business. And then I have started to make things better, to improve the connection, the internet access, to improve the cybersecurity. Then in 2016, I have changed to BayWa and I've started to set up there the SCADA team, the actual SCADA team. I was the first guy in that time. Now the team is over 10 people. And then we have established or designed own products. I have started to sell it also externally, and my team and I were the key point to talk with in the whole BayWa group. So it means worldwide. We have supported our colleagues, set up the complete business. So for new sites, really start with the planning, with the project management, and later on with the installation and setup of the communication and the cybersecurity assets on site for wind and PV. And then in 2024, so a bit more than 2 years, I have changed to Amprion. Amprion is a transmission system operator in Germany, and we are supporting or providing energy to whole Western Germany, and we are set up our offshore assets. We have HVDC assets in the North Sea, where we collect the energy from the offshore wind farms, transform it from AC to DC, to high voltage DC, and then transferring over a landline to the onshore station, where we have the convertation back to AC power and then feed into the grid. And my job is to take care that our cybersecurity requirements are met by the suppliers, by the sub-suppliers, and that our systems are safe and secure. This is what I'm doing. I'm not the only one. I'm also working in a team because it's too much for one person. But it's very interesting. It's very exciting. It's when you come from the renewables business, then you would see that offshore everything is bigger, more complicated, more expensive, and larger. But it's super interesting, super exciting, and it's a very interesting job I love to do every day.
Okay. Brilliant. Well, thanks for that overview, Mohammed. So let's get into our sort of key topics. We're going to speak about NIS 2 regulations and the
Yes.
impacts on obviously your sector, the sort of renewable sector. So where would you like to start on that point, Mohammed? Because obviously it's quite a big topic, and I think one that will be interesting for a lot of
Mhm.
people.
Yeah, I would start with the first overview to summarize what we are talking about. What is NIS2
Mm,
and what means that? So the NIS2 is a Network Information Security Directive from the European Union that was released 2022, I think, beginning 2022. And normally every EU member state need to convert the directive into a legal law or local law by mid of October 24. So not all countries have finished their local laws in this deadline. Most of them, or a lot of them, are coming after, finished after the deadline. Some are not finished yet. But what means that? So the EU have seen that we have a lot of critical infrastructure. That means energy. Energy is the mother of critical infrastructure because nothing works without energy. But also water supply, fresh water, wastewater. Waste is also critical infrastructure, or food. Yeah, we all need something to eat, something to drink. There are a lot of critical industries, also IT. What we are do right now is not possible
mm,
when the IT systems are not running. And this critical infrastructure must be protected. And this is why the European Union have said we need to be more resilient. We need to be more resilient. The companies need to invest more in cybersecurity to avoid that a foreign state can hack the companies, and then we have a problem with energy supply or food supply and so on. And this is why they have established this directive and tell the countries that they need to make laws. It's called NIS 2 because NIS 1 is very long time ago. It was the first shot, and now this is the update, and they are still working on NIS 3 because, as everyone knows who is working with cybersecurity, cybersecurity is a very fast changing business. So the security topics of today are very old tomorrow.
mm.
So it's very fast changing, and when you wait, every day you wait is a step back. And this is why they are still producing or working on new regulatories, because the other side, we say in Germany, it is a cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
Every time the mouse finds a new way, the cat needs to find a new way to catch the mouse. And it's also with the hackers, or with the hacker industry, we need to say. And this is why this law was established. And every company which is one of these regulated sectors needs to check if they are affected or not. We have company sizes, so it means how many manpower you have, so how many employees, or the business, the business numbers like revenue and so on. And then they have the small and the mid caps. And in Germany, there is a specialty. We have also megawatt sizes. So that means also when the company sizes are lower, and then you have one big plant, it means you're also affected. This is a specialty from Germany because Germany's first IT security law is older than NIS 1. And from that time, the thresholds are coming.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point with the term cat and mouse. I hear that a lot, to be honest, when interviewing or speaking to different people in my daily business. I think, and hackers and people like that, they're always getting smarter, almost ahead in a way, and it's that cat and mouse scenario, isn't it? How do you see that impacting renewables specifically? Is there anything that's really relevant in this world, in I suppose the geopolitical situation we see ourselves in?
So what I can see in the past, that a lot of companies, especially the owners, have seen that they need to do something because it's their own assets and they have invested millions.
Mm,
So you can say for actual PV plants, 700,000 euros per megawatt, and in wind, 1 million per megawatt. So this is just a rough estimation. So, and we're talking in wind, a typically wind turbine today have 4 to 7 megawatts. So that means every wind turbine when it's installed today had cost approximately 5 to 7 million.
wow.
So this is
Okay.
yeah, it's a big
I didn't
amount of
actually know
money.
that figure. That's That's a lot of money per wind turbine.
That
Right.
Yeah, that's a lot of money per wind turbine, and you have wind farms mostly. So a two is a very small wind farm.
Mm.
The typical farms have so 4 to 5 turbines. So that we say about 20 to 25 million euro invest.
Okay.
So as a rough estimation, it depends on the place and so on. But you can say so as a rough estimation. Um,
And how much
we have
energy would
we are
a,
talking
a
about.
sorry to jump in, how much energy would a 5 turbine wind farm generate on an annual basis? So,
A 5 turbine wind farm, we can say, so when we say we have 6 megawatt turbines,
mm,
that means we have 30 megawatts.
yeah.
30 megawatts is so when you have a house with a heat pump,
Mm,
not with the gas. So a typical house with a heat pump, you have approximately 10 megawatts per year
okay.
for the one familiar house.
Mm,
So that means that such a wind farm, when it's working on 100%, it can produce in 1 hour the energy 3 houses need for a whole year, consuming energy when they have a heat pump. When they have a gas heater, then it's much more houses. So just to see how many energy is produced. To calculate that per year, it is a bit difficult
yeah.
because it depends on, do we talk near shore, or do we talk in the middle of the country, or do we talk approximately offshore? So offshore, it's much more, and offshore wind turbines are much bigger.
Okay.
So offshore wind turbines are 15 megawatts per each.
Okay.
They have higher installation costs, but they also have a higher revenue because you have more regular wind
Okay.
offshore.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks. Okay. And what
Sorry.
particular sort of challenges are you seeing at the moment from a
Yeah.
kind of security perspective in relation to this in sort of NIS 2 and I suppose the general impact it's having in renewables?
Yeah, so as I've said, I have seen in the past that more and more owners are getting interested in this topic. So I
Mm,
have invested a lot of millions. I want to protect my invest. But what we also see, because they are forced, that also the project developer are more and more interested in this topic, because for the most project developer in the past were develop a project, construct it, and sell it. So as cheaper they can set up the plant, as more venue they have. But they have seen that their customers are more and more asking for cybersecurity. So now they are forced also to take care about that. And also the requirements are rising. So as I have started in 2012, a wind farm where when the wind turbine manufacturer, who's also constructing the wind turbine, you just tell them, here's the DSL connection, here are username and password. Sometimes so it's written in the cabinets and the SCADA cabinet on site with the user and password written in the door. And that's it. And now you have up to 5, 6 parties which were involved in one wind farm. So that means that you have a more complex
mm,
network situation than before. And also, we have a lot of direct marketing. So it means we don't only get the feed-in tariff in Germany. Bigger farms up to 100 kilowatts peak need to sell their energy using a direct marketer. And these direct marketers need to have always the information what the plant is doing. So they need to know how many energy is produced by the plant, because when they have made a wrong forecast and they have forecasted more energy then the plant is producing, they need to buy something. And when they have forecasted to less than the energy plant is producing, they need to reduce the energy of the plant. And when the connection is lost, they will have a penalty fee for the owner. So we can see that the communication is not only the cybersecurity, also the reliability of the connection is more and more important.
mm,
And in the past, I have talked with companies, and they said, "Yeah, cybersecurity is yeah, it's a nice to have, but it will cost money, so we don't do it." But now we will see that also because of NIS 2, more and more companies are coming to us, or coming to my past job, or coming also still today to me and ask me, "Hey, Mohammed, we want to do something. We are forced, but we have seen it is a good idea to do something. It doesn't matter if the
mm.
the regulatory by law is requesting that. It's still our asset. What can you suggest to me to do that? So we see that more and more people are aware of this topic, and this is very good because the security of the sites were not the best in the past. There's room for improvement, so to say. And this is I'm happy to see that because I love electricity. I love to go to the fridge and it's working. I love to press the switch and the light is on. And we have seen in the past that hacking energy sites is nothing. It's not science fiction. It's happened today.
Yeah.
And the best way to hit a country is to shut down the electricity because nothing will work anymore. There's a book. It's from Austrian guy. It's called Blackout. There's a anarchistic group who makes blackouts over whole Europe in February when it's very cold. It's a science fiction book, but it's very interesting. There's a lot of things I have never mentioned. So like the farmers, the cows are dying because the machine for milking the cows is not working because it's running with energy, and the farmers are not able to milking all the cows because they are relying on the machine. People go to the supermarket, and also even the door is electric. So they can't enter the supermarket because the door isn't opening without electricity. And then when you start imagine, you will see that our whole society is completely relying on electricity. Everything will stop working. Also, your car is not working because when you go to the gas station, the pumps also working with electricity. They have gas in the tank, but they are not able to get it out because they have no electricity. So it's amazing when you when you start thinking about that. Nothing is working without electricity today.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I suppose a good example of this, a real life example, is the grid attack in Poland at the end of last year. Maybe you could give the listeners a kind of overview of what happened, Mohamed. You probably know it slightly better than me, and it maybe sort of also we could talk about how this might have been prevented if NIS2 was already in place a few years ago. Maybe how the impact that might have had in preventing that attack in Poland, because that was just what you were describing then in terms of attacking a critical infrastructure sort of grid operator, wasn't it?
So what happened in Poland? There were a lot of sites, especially renewable energy sites, were hacked. So we need to explain a bit further. You have, especially at wind farms, you have two networks. You have once the wind farm network. So we have a ring, which is starting at the central SCADA and going to turbine 1, turbine 2, and so on, and then back. And then you have the management network, where the third parties are included and also the grid operator. The grid operators need still a connection to the site, especially when we talk about larger sites. So we don't talk about every rooftop PV, but especially on larger sites, when the grid operator needs to know what is happening there. So what is the plant doing, active, reactive power, and also the grid operator needs a possibility to shut down the plant when there's too much energy. You can say an energy grid it's like a sea, and you have someone who's putting water in. There's other energy producers like the power plants, wind turbines, PV, coal, nuclear, and so on. On the other side, you have those who are taking water out of the sea. That means the homes, the industry, the business companies, and so on. And the job of the grid operator is to keep the balance. That exactly that is fed in what is getting out, so that you have a balance. When you have more or more outgoing energy than incoming, or more incoming than outgoing, you have an imbalance, and this would avoid a blackout. So this is why the grid operators need every time to know what the plants are doing yet. And this is also placed in this management network, so to say, which is not controlling the plant, which is communicating with the plant. And these networks were attacked. The attacker have found a way. There are, as I have read, often firewalls from FortiGate used, But it seems that someone have installed this firewall and then never touched it again.
Mm.
So it was a fire and forget solution. And they have the attackers have seen that these firewalls are not managed, and an unmanaged firewall is like no firewall, because a firewall which is preventing attackers or which is separating internal from an external network is always as good as it is maintained. So it needs updates and needs someone who's taking care that firewall rules are from time to time check it, is they useful or not, and so on. And these firewalls were not managed at that time, and the attackers have used zero-day vulnerabilities, have attacked these firewalls, have found the networks behind that, especially the devices which were used by the grid operator to to communicate with the site. And these devices were mostly brought by the plant owner or by the project developer. They have requirements from the grid operator saying them, we need to have device XYZ, which is doing that and this, and you need to communicate with this and this endpoint. So they have their requirements, and they bought the hardware, install them on site, and then the hardware is measuring the feed-in energy, so active power, reactive power, and so on, and then transmit the information to the grid operator. And when from the grid operator comes a command like, please shut down to 50%, and then the devices receive the command and give them to the SCADA system and translate to the SCADA system, please shut down to 50% maximum feed-in. And there's still a media breach to say. So when you have IP communication to the plant, and then the next step needs to go in serial. So what have the attackers done? They have found the devices. Often the devices were not well protected, so they have the usual username and passwords, or they are also not updated, so they have vulnerabilities.
Mm.
And then they have also breached in that devices and start wipers. A wiper is a little piece of software which is wiping the whole settings and sometimes the whole firmware of the devices. So the devices were broken and not working anymore. And that had caused that the grid operator had not seen what is happened there. So he was blind. There are a lot of assets which are feeding in to his grid, or even not. So they don't know what the plants are doing. They have the plants, and this is a very critical situation because, as I've said, the grid operator needs to know who is feeding in and who is getting out of the grid to keep the balance. And they don't have send shutdown commands or something else. They just have wipe the devices. So, in my opinion, those who are know to do that know that they can do more.
Mhm.
That was more a first shot to show, look, what we can do, but we can do more.
Mm.
And this is, in my opinion, what had happened.
Yeah, it's a bit of a warning sign, bit of a signal. And I
Yes.
suppose it's,
Yeah.
unfortunately, we might see more of that in the current geopolitical landscape that's facing the world because, you know, with what's happening in the world, this type of thing might become a little bit more prominent. It's a kind of, it's a new type of warfare, to be blunt, isn't it? I suppose, you know, it's not bullets and rockets necessarily. It's attack on critical infrastructure simply like this. So that's really interesting. And it almost sounds like, from what you said, Mohamed, some of this stuff is a lack of focus, you know, like putting in a firewall, not maintaining it, and almost things that can actually be fixed quite easily, or when maintained a lot better, can have a good impact in terms of security, in terms of like being very much more aware. And you think that's what NIS 2 is bringing in. It's sort of, if this was in place a few years ago, this particular attack in Poland might have been prevented. Do you think that might be the case?
Yes, definitely. Yes. Because NIS 2 is not rocket science. So the rules from NIS 2 is not something really super complex. It is just a cybersecurity basics. As you have said, with the firewall, just maintain the firewall had reduced the impact a lot. Is The easiest steps, or the first steps in cybersecurity, have the most impact. You can kick out 80% of the hackers by just following the easiest things, like no port forwardings, like using strong passwords, like doing updates. And when you are doing the next step, you will also kick out the next 10. You will never reach 100%. This is not impossible. Sorry, this is not possible. It is impossible. So everyone will tell you, I bring you 100% security is a liar. You will never have 100% security. This is completely impossible. But you can make it as much difficult as possible.
Yeah.
So it's like when you have your house, when you let the door open, you don't need to be it's shocked when you come home and someone has steal your new television. So, but when you close the door, you will you will make it much complicated for gangsters to breach into your house. So the next thing is to close the window, and the next thing is to lock the door, not just closing it. And the next thing is you can make an alarm system. But this is the last thing. The first things: close the door, lock it, and close the windows will bring the most benefit. And this is what NIS 2 says. So at first thing, it forces the companies to start dealing with this topic. And then they will do the first step. So no one wants that you have a fully integrated information management system after one week. This is a process. You will start with the gap analysis. So this information security management system is something which is forced by the NIS. And this is a lot of people know about ISO 27001. This is the norm behind that. And this is a management system which helps you to see what are my assets, where are my gaps, and how to close them. And no one requests that you will do that everything in one step. So the most important thing is to make a gap analysis and an overview of your assets. So this is the first thing: to know your assets, to know your gaps, and then you can make a roadmap to how to protect it. So the first year we will do step 1, in the second year step 2, and so on. And also, no one wants, when you make an ISO 27001 certification, no one requests from you that you do the whole company in once. This is also a bad idea. You will start with the first department, which is the most important, then with the second important department, and then every year you would add something until you have the whole company. And which is also in the German version of the NIS directive, which is what I love, is the part that the management of the company is responsible for cybersecurity. This is very good because you hear often from the management, cybersecurity is too expensive, we will not do that.
Yeah.
And then when they are hacked, oh my God, we have a lot of lose a lot of money because we are hacked. And now it's in Germany. I don't know. I think it's very similar in other countries, but in Germany, the management is the one who is responsible, and they are responsible when the company is hacked. So the government will first ask the management, when they are hacked, what do you have done to prevent that?
Yeah.
And when the management can show we have done that, we have here an ISO manager, we have make a certification, we were good, but the hacker is better, then all is fine. And when the management said we have done nothing, and then they have a problem, they have a personal problem.
Yeah, they
and
can.
Also, they need to.
They can be fined, can't they? The executives of the companies. So I think that is it's a very strong driver to to make
Yes.
companies do it. That's
Yes.
obviously why it's been put in place, and I think that's a key element of NIS 2, is that I think it's a percentage of turnover that the executives can simply be fined. So it's almost making them take this seriously, which you could argue they should
Yes.
have been doing anyway. But that's the point, isn't it? It's to make this stuff avoidable. Don't take your eye off it because it costs money. It's really critical to your business.
Yeah. And also in Germany, the management needs to show that they have made a management training. They need to show we have done the management training, and this training is mandatory for the management and also for the employees, because the human firewall is the biggest impact to companies, because a lot of hacks, so people think always hacks start with very super special stuff. No, it mostly starts with simple phishing email.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Human
the
error,
biggest
I
sites.
suppose, isn't it, as well? It's sort of
Yeah.
a lot of hacks. They're not, like you say, they're not super sophisticated sometimes. It can be, yeah, human error, a weak password, or, very poor security standards. And people look for that and exploit it in the end.
Yeah, a lot of these things are forced to do that by the company. So it means they need to do the security management. They need to check the assets. They need to train their
Mm.
employees. They need to make things like two-factor authentication. This is also two-factor authentication is a super simple thing. You just need to watch on your mobile and type in a small number. This is something you do once a day.
Mm.
It is harms no one. It is not much big effort, but it brings a very high rise in security,
Yeah.
very high, just by typing watching on your phone and typing some numbers into your keyboard. It's a very small step, but it will have a big impact to your cybersecurity.
Mm. Yeah. No, I completely
Such
agree.
easy things.
I think there's some really good points in that and what you've said, Mohammed. It doesn't have to be too complicated or too sophisticated to put hackers off either.
Yes.
Like two-step authentication. These points are, or these things are, very commonplace now, and companies should be doing it because it will even maybe to the extent where the hackers just move on and look for a different target because, there will be easier targets. It's making your company more resilient to those external threats. So I think that's really interesting and some really good insights. So look, thanks for sharing everything today, Mohammed. Some good reminders of the importance of this and how it doesn't actually have to be too complicated. And you talk about the attack in Poland. That's a real life example of why this stuff is important and why
Mhm.
it's been brought in, and how the executives of all these companies now need to take this very seriously. So thanks for sharing your insights. It's been great to have you on the
You're welcome.
podcast. And yeah, it maybe if I could say to the listeners, if they're open to connecting with you on LinkedIn, are you okay with that? If anybody reaches out to you,
Oh,
Mohammed,
oh yeah.
from the renewable space or OT, is that okay?
Yeah, everyone who's interested, you can catch me on LinkedIn. Stay connected. If you have questions, feel free to write me a message. I'm always happy to help to show.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well,
Yeah,
look, thanks again, Mohammed. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast, and I'll talk to you again soon. And
you're welcome.
everybody, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.